Oh my goodness. Hello, friends. Oh, the lighting in here is weird today. Wait, can you see me now? I think I'm clear. Is that better? I don't know. Hi. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I feel like this side of my face. What is happening right now? Hold on. I'm going to try opening up my curtain because I feel like I'm in the dark, but it's bright in here. Okay. Hello? No, it's not any better. Wait, I think I need to reflect. Oh, that's better, but now I'm reflecting light. Okay, anyway, hi. How's everyone doing today? Thanks for being here. I'm very excited to talk to you about this, what might be my best, like a favorite nonfiction book of the year. I don't know if it's contending for first place for book of the year yet. I've got some thoughts about that, but it's definitely going to be on the list. It's probably going to be in top 5. This is a book review for Black AF History by Michael Harriot, the unwhitewashed story of America. And I'm so excited to finally talk about this. Part of me feels like I should have reviewed it like right after I finished reading it because I could not shut up about it. I just kept interrupting everything that my partner was doing and be like, did you know? Did you know? Did you know? It's not for the faint of heart. Like, it talks about some really serious stuff. So major trigger warnings. Major trigger warnings before going into this if you haven't read it already. Damien! Yay! This is my favorite nonfiction of the year. That makes me so happy because it's mine too. Oh, Damien, we're going to have so many things to talk about, okay? It was so, holy cow, the way this was written. Like, I wish all textbooks were written like this. Hello, thanks for being here. If you read it, let me know, and let me know what you rated it. So this was the book club pick for August for the Annotation Station Book Club, which is a book club I run here online. Our focus is to read diversely and stay informed. So if you'd like to join our Discord, consider becoming a channel member at any level to get access to the Discord to talk about it all month long and just kind of keep up in the chat and meet some new friends. But the live stream reviews are always free here on my channel. So that makes you happy because I didn't hate it. Yeah, and listen, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be a hater sometimes. Listen, Natalie didn't read it because she's like, she wasn't in a nonfiction mood, and that's okay. Like, everybody, you read at your own pace, you read what you like. Oh, okay, just starting. So here's the thing. I'm going to go full spoilers. Personally, I'm the kind of person where I don't really care about spoilers of facts in my nonfiction books because I believe that the way that a nonfiction book is structured is very integral to the way that we digest that information. So I personally am like, I don't care if I hear spoilers about nonfiction books I haven't finished or read. So if you care about that, just be aware. I'm just going to go full detail on the things that I really want to highlight because there's so many facts. Look at my tabs, y'all. In between my stickies, like so many tabs. I tab the heck out of this thing. And I'm not even going to be able to cover everything that this book talks about, but I've got a couple like highlight notes of things. Oh, there goes the sticky note. So yeah, I really appreciated the writing style. It was simple without dumbing things down. The references on some jokes were definitely not for me, but it was still amazing. Okay, cool. Yeah, I personally loved the style of humor. Like, this author has a great way of telling history, and they're very no nonsense about it. They bring in like these personas of family members and made up characters in order to have some sort of conversation. Like, there's this one person that they okay, so that being said, triggers and everything, there's like this one character that they make up, which they call little racist white baby, and it's basically like a personification of a little white kid who's like, but my parents said this, and they're like, it's okay, little white dude, let me educate you because clearly your parents don't know what they're talking about because they themselves are spouting white supremacist nonsense, right? So the way that these topics were broached was like impeccable. Armand, hello. How do? Okay, cool. Not gonna hold back. Awesome. Leslie, hi. Did you read this? Did you read it? Tell me. Okay, I'm gonna get started in a sec. I can't look at your tabs, them sticking out so much. Listen, okay, so here's the thing. The colorful tabs were my notes during the reading, and the pink ones are like stuff I want to focus on for the book. Okay, I'm not going to do this in any particular chronological order, even though, so the way that you enter the story is it literally starts with Columbus, like the founding of America as is explained in American textbooks. So even though this is a history of America, it's still very much global because global events and politics influenced the decisions that were made that form the America that we know today. So I feel like there's so much that happens, and it goes from the very beginning to the contemporary. And so, to me, this could have easily been another 500 pages, but they condensed it and edited it down in a way that was very impressive. No, but I really want to read it at some point. I'm here for all your spoilers. That's amazing because I loved it, Leslie. It was so good. Okay, listen. All right, there's going to be hard things I'm going to talk about. So I will let you know when I'm getting something really dark and gruesome, because the whole point is that American history is very dark. Anyone who says that it is not, or tries to gloss over it, as we are currently seeing in the current American administration, where they are creating educational materials for children stating that slavery wasn't so bad. Lies and propaganda, all of it. Okay. The entire history of American politics and culture is a battle with propaganda. So to start us off, the very beginning, the first like few chapters focuses on how America almost didn't become anything, how it almost didn't work out. But hatred finds a way. So what happened was, what we know of, yes, there is currently a children's show that is endorsed by our government that is being sold as curriculum to Republican states to be used in schools, of Christopher Columbus saying slavery wasn't so bad because the other alternative is to be unalived. But like, dude, people were being eaten, okay? In slavery, people were being used as not only a service, as slave labor, but as a product for consumption. So that it doesn't even like, what? it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But anyway, point is that America almost didn't happen. So going back to the beginning. So we have Columbus, who I'm not even going to go over the whole like why Columbus came here and all of that jazz, but rather that he comes, they find America, quote unquote, things go on with the indigenous peoples that are here, and then eventually what we know as the pilgrims start coming over. That's kind of where I want to start with this on my first highlight. So what is it, the Jamestownians, as they're referred to, like the first European settlements here in the United States, Jamestown, almost didn't make it because they were at war with the indigenous populations that were already there and had established civilizations, because they came in and were like, give us your shit. And they were like, who the fuck are you? Rightfully so. So instead of using their resources or their collective resources and brains to say, all right, someone else was already here. We're fleeing because we want we're fleeing religious persecution. We want this freedom to be able to govern our own lives. And yet there's no kind of connection that we're doing the same thing to the people who we just landed on their shore and we're like, give me your shit, right? So that's a thing. So they almost all didn't make it. The only reason that they survived so many winters as they did until the European powers that be decided, that land over yonder looks like something worthy of investment, was cannibalism. They literally were, instead of using their brain to learn agriculture and to maybe like, say, hey, indigenous people who are able to till this land and have been living here for a long time, I'm so sorry that we just came like barging in your front door, but we don't have a way to go back home. So like maybe we can like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, teach us how to, plant crops and everything. No. Cannibalism. That's what they did to each other. So this was before they even started bringing over slaves, okay? So the only reason that they survived to eventually start forming America as we know it is because the colonizing powers in Europe, so Britain, which eventually leads into the Civil War, Spain, Portugal, France, all these, powers, starting with Britain in this case, decided, you know what? There's some things that we can grow over there, and there's also gold and other things that we think are valuable that the native people there don't think are valuable. So let's go gyp them for it. Because in the indigenous cultures, things like gold, for example, I'm Puerto Rican, as you can clearly see. Puerto Rico stands for the port of riches, right? So it was named this because there was a lot of gold and things like that in the Caribbean. But the people that were there did not see gold as a value of currency. It was just something that they used for adornment, something for like cultural practices. And so the UK comes over and says, we want this. And so therefore they see something of value. Therefore, they start investing in sending over more boats, sending over, that's when they start sending over slaves to be able to work the lands and everything like that. But an important part to note of that is that everything that we know about the American agricultural system was stolen by Black women. Okay. So in the book, it talks about how, because the land structure is very different from that of Europe, and that the slaves that they were bringing over, the women in particular, were in charge of agricultural practices, irrigation, things like that in their home country. The slave masters and the Jamestownians and all them saw that the slave women knew what to do with the land and saw that they were creating these irrigation systems similarly to what they had practiced back home. And instead, like all of this just boils down to, instead of doing the most obvious thing, or doing the thing that, wouldn't cause people to be unalived, instead of saying, hey, teach us how you did that, right? It's not just we're going to steal what you did and say, I, white man, invented this thing, because that's what they do the entire time. They go back to the specific countries where those practices are done and start stealing people in mass, start kidnapping people in mass, specifically people who have the knowledge of agriculture and irrigation. because somehow that just makes sense. Somehow. It's like every single thing we learn about in this book that is some kind of policy change or system or educational practice or economic change that's made, just like every single thing seems to be founded in some white person going, what's the least amount of work that I could do right now to get the most profit, not lift a pinky? And here we are. Here we are. And it's just like, it's mind-boggling. It's sad. I found myself while I was reading this when you're like simultaneously, like you want to cry, but you just laugh because if you don't, you're gonna cry. Like that was me the entire time, aside from the fact that Michael Harriot was just inserting levity everywhere. I'm like, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. And what I love that the author did is that they, again, going back to the characters that they inserted, like the little racist white boy baby asking questions based on what their parents said, or conversations with his uncle, bringing in like other people as characters to have him have conversation with, is because there are people who are trying to say that these things didn't happen the way it was. You know, whether it be white fragility, whether it be because it's going to make their worldview, have to question their worldview, not want to lift their own pinky, whatever the case may be. And it's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. But we know it's true because all of these things in here are things that there were moments in here where I was like, I remember being in school and learning about this. I remember learning about the Civil War. I remember learning about Abraham Lincoln. I remember learning about the founding fathers and all of these things. But all of it was spun in a way in which it was, here is this great white man who had this great idea. None of these ideas were their own. None. And every thought that they had that they decided to turn into some sort of legal action, none of the benefits applied to anyone who was not a white man. And I hope that if there's any white woman watching this, that you understand that that also didn't apply to white women, which is why we have the amendments. We wouldn't have needed amendments had the application of the benefits applied to everybody. So we need to start teaching history for what it really was, which is dark, and it's upsetting, and it's about divide. It's about segregation of the individual person and trying to separate the humanity out of anyone who does not fit the white male body. That's what this really is. And the fact that even now we're seeing a rise of fascism in the American government just goes to show that none of this has ever disappeared. All of it is very prevalent. And it's like the long game that a lot of people, a lot of players throughout American history fought for, is still having repercussions. So I'll get to more on that later when I talk about the United Daughters of the Confederacy. But if anyone has anything they want to add to anything I just said, please feel free to drop it in the comments. I'd love to talk about it. There's so much to talk about here, and I only have an hour, so I'm going to jump to important points. Okay, so since I mentioned the Civil War, I think I'll jump over to talking about the Civil War real quick. So there's this misconception in a lot of places that the American Civil War wasn't fully about slavery, but it was. It was very much about slavery. And part of the misconception is that it was the Union fighting to end slavery for moral good, as the history books and textbooks like to frame it, versus the South, which was pro-slavery. They also say it was things like economic reasons and our culture reasons. All of those reasons were there, but they all tie back into the foundation of the American economy, which was slavery at the time. So what was happening was, about 10 years prior to the start of the American Civil War, all of the other countries in Europe that were running the transatlantic slave trade decided to abolish slavery. And so there's now this global movement to end it as an economic practice. And the entire world is looking at America and saying, you gonna get with the program or what? What are we doing? And originally, America was like, we're not doing anything. It works for us. Why would we change what's working? Until something that many of us might be very familiar with, and more recent activity by our government, which is like government sanctioned tariffs and blocking of trade with the new United States, and saying, well, if you're not going to abolish slavery, we don't want to do business with you. And then Abraham Lincoln and all the other dudes were like, oh, wait, hold on a second. Let's talk. And the Civil War eventually begins. Damien says, yeah, it was so surprising for me. Like, I'm so not an American. And even I learned in school that the Civil War was really about. I was shocked to find out this wasn't. Yes, this is true. In many American schools and curricula, it is not taught correctly. There is so much propaganda that happens in our schools. And we are at a very dangerous point in our history right now, where there is this not only reinsertion of that propaganda, but the erasure of history altogether, which to me is even more dangerous. It's bad. It's really bad. We also, the same thing can be said about the way that we learned about World War II. It's like everything is, the Germans, but like, we're just as bad. We've had a hand in so many things. And this whole thing that is fed to a lot of Americans of like being this world police, we've done nothing. We've done nothing for any kind of, what's the word? Philanthropic? No, not philanthropic. It starts with an A. When you do something out of altruistic, we've never done anything for altruistic reasons. That does not exist in our government's vernacular. Okay. But we have in the entire existence of our country, I think I read, what was the statistic? Something like, maybe there's been like 5 or 10 years out of the entire existence of our country that we've never been involved in a war. And that was somewhere in like the beginning, the foundation of our country. So for the past 200 some years, we've always been involved in a war. American school system is full of propaganda. Yep. I think that's why I gravitated towards Yes. Same. It's an effort to re-educate myself, which is why I gravitate towards it. Correct. Yeah. So actually, I wanted to read you something. Now that you mentioned that, thank you, Leslie. I wanted to read you a quote in here from Abraham Lincoln, because he is heralded as like this amazing white man who wanted to get rid of slavery because slavery was morally bad, but that is not true. Hello, I've read this book and I want to surprise everyone. Hello, friend. How are you doing? I'm going to do sprints after this. So in like 35 minutes. Oh my God. I'm only in the beginning. I'm like almost 30 minutes in and I'm still talking about the Civil War. Okay. We got a lot to talk about. So, don't get me started on Pocahontas. I will never look at that Disney movie the same. Like, I knew it was a lie, but to that degree, I'm a sad noodle. Okay. So, I got to talk about the Haitian Revolution. Wait, okay. Okay, here we go. It says, Lincoln calmed fears of disunion by insisting that he had no plans to elevate Black Americans, free or enslaved, to the status of white men. Quote, I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the Black and white races, he said in an 1858 speech. Quote again, I will say in addition to this that there is a physical difference between the white and Black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. And inasmuch as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. End quote. So he was very loudly pro-slavery, but could no longer do that because of economic reasons that were going to impact this new government. So the separation of the Union and the Confederacy was because if they didn't, trade would stop. Okay. And that was not how American history was taught to me growing up. Thanks, friend. Okay. So that being said, one thing that I really wanted to point it out that kind of made my jaw drop was I never really spent a lot of time looking into the history of the Confederate flag. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with it, if you just Google Confederate flag, the one that is going to pop up is the one that is most commonly flown now. It is sold as bumper stickers. It is commonly flown proudly in towns. If you were to drive into the southern half of the United States into rural areas, it is not a secret that this flag is loved in certain parts of the country. I did not know that the Confederate flag, as we see today, is actually the version that was designed by the Triple K. I thought that that was the actual Confederate flag. It's not. It's not. So when people are current day, putting back up statues of Confederate generals, and those same people are pushing for book bans, and those same people are fighting for policies that encourage a worldview that is similar to their own. All of this is a long game that stems all the way back to the Civil War. And that blew my mind. It's like, I always knew that the undercurrent of hatred was always there, but I didn't know that there were actually groups and still are people in those same groups who have maintained these groups for almost 200 years. Wild. Yes, the current design of the flag as we see it is the Triple K design version. And all of this is a master plan done in part, because there are other groups, but largely in part by a group called the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Shout out to, what's the book that I hate so much, where I first heard about the United Daughters of the Confederacy? I think it's True Blood. Shout out to True Blood for promoting the United Daughters of Confederacy and making the love interest a Confederate soldier, because I would have never learned about it before that, but that's how I first heard about them. And I was like, wait, this is disgusting. Why are you romancing this? Anyway, neither here nor there. The United Daughters of the Confederacy was formed around the Civil War and was formed by groups of families that maintained wealth from plantations. Their ultimate goal was to ensure that white supremacy as a concept does not disappear. And they have been active for the past almost 200 years. So they actually are a very large Republican donor. Anytime that you see statues of Confederate generals, every single one was put up by the United Daughters of Confederacy. And the ones that are being reinstated are being financially supported by the United Daughters of the Confederacy. They intentionally understood that if the iconography of the South disappeared with the rise of the Union, that their ideology would have less power. And so they pooled their money. They pooled their plantation money to create statues of people who were Triple K members and supporters of white supremacy. So anyone who says that these statues are remnants of quality American history either are extremely immigrant or they are in support of the Triple K. That either or both. Porque no los dos, right? So that blew my mind about how much active they are today. Also about many American politicians who were voted into government in the past, who were very openly Triple K members. This was a very common thing. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to segue into something that was actually talked about towards the end of the book, which I thought was extremely interesting. And that is, how do we have the two-party system now, as we know it as Republicans and Democrats? And why is it that in the year 2025, Triple K members are financially endorsing the Republican Party and are currently endorsing our current sitting president? Just going to throw that out there in case you didn't know. And why is it that a majority of Black voters tend to vote Democrat? It actually was very surprising to me that this is a more recent occurrence, that the division of the parties as we know it and as we currently vote here only started in the 1960s. And I was like, what? Because I knew that there were always different parties and that parties evolved, but I didn't know that the parties as we know them, it was such a recent turnabout. So essentially, it's very complicated. And honestly, I'm going to say that I don't know that I fully grasped everything that was in that chapter, but I think I have a clear understanding of the main takeaway, which is that there was this subgroup of the at time Republican Democratic Party, because it used to be one title, and there were multiple groups. There was the Black and Tan Party, and I think a few other things. There was a subgroup of the Republican Democrat Party that was called the Lily Whites. That was their name officially. And they were formed in response and opposition to Black votership. So because of the events of the civil rights movement, which happened in the 1950s and 60s, Black voters were now being registered in mass, because even though there were laws slowly being created throughout the 1900s that allowed certain people to vote, we had the Jim Crow laws, the one-drop rule, all these things. The 1960s was when the voting systems as we currently experience them were established. And so all of a sudden you have a large amount of Black people that are able to vote. And so many of them started voting for certain policy makers who would be in their best interest, because the government was establishing systems that were very much openly anti-Black, right? Like segregation of schools, division of taxes that would then go into defunding certain schools, poor land being used to build housing that was only available to Blacks, so on and so forth. There's just a whole lot that's going on there, right? If you want to learn more about it, I would highly suggest reading The Color of Law, but that's another book and for another time. So the Lily Whites formed in direct response to the sudden rise in Black votership, and therefore separated themselves and formed the Republican Party, the foundation of the Republican Party as we now know it. And I found that to be wildly interesting. And it also made sense to me as to why, like, the Democratic Party in the United States, which has more liberal ideologies, is still not socialist, is still not what I consider to be progressive enough to do anything constructively, is still very much like not doing what they need to do to be able to get things done in the face of fascism is because they were partially founded in that same rhetoric. It's just a matter of the white people who did not become part of the lily whites stayed there and were like, oh, Black people are voting for us en masse. Let's change the way we're doing things so that they'll keep voting for us. But actually, we're still really racist, you know? So, like, yeah. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense, actually. How so disappointing. In that, this was also extremely mind-boggling because it's one of those things that I feel like I always knew, but I never like heard of a actual name for an organization. And it's crazy because the chapter talks about, like, when this chapter opens up, Michael Harriot is like, listen, I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to sound like a conspiracy theory, and it's going to sound crazy, but I wouldn't include it in this book if it wasn't true. And I have sources to back it up. And there's plenty of sources in the back of this book, by the way. Great citation. Anyway, a FBI, CIA funded body of the government whose job is literally to track, to keep an eye on and tail Black activists. The name of this organization is the COINTELPRO. I think that's the COINTELPRO. This was created under Edgar Hoover. And I'm just going to read to you what it says, because there's a lot of documents that are referenced in this. The documents would reveal that John Edgar Hoover had used his skills to create a 50-year intelligence gathering and surveillance project that evolved into the COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program that targeted every Black leader during the civil rights struggle. Its goal was to, as follows: 1, prevent the coalition of militant Black national groups. 2, prevent the rise of a quote-unquote messiah who would unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. 3, prevent violence on the part of Black nationalist groups. 4, prevent militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to 3 separate segments of the community. And 5, prevent the long-range growth of militant Black organizations, especially among youth. Katie! Hi, Katie. Oh, please, I hope you come back, and I hope you pick up this book because it's so good, and I hope people are getting a lot of information out of this because I'm doing my darndest to pick up on the highlights of how important this book is. So, to illustrate that point, they talk about different points within the civil rights protests in which, like, I did learn in history class about how hoses were used to deter people, tear gas is used, like all of these really hurtful things are done to hurt people. But again, it was downplayed because in here it talks about how these coalitions were very active and present at these different civil rights protests. And it's like, it's one thing to make it seem like they were using the hose to wet people and like it's a pressure hose, so it's gonna hurt, right? They made it seem like, oh, it leaves black and blues and, you know, it's gonna force you to move out of the way and disperse people. We're talking about, and I'm gonna get graphic here for a second, we're talking about pressure so strong that it peels the skin off people's bodies. That is horrible. Horrible. And to know that a government organization was funded, and we don't even know if they were ever dismantled, to intentionally incite violence against Black communities in the sake of violence prevention. It also goes into here about how the police were formed. So, point blank, the police were formed as a means. The original police were formed as a means of corralling freed slaves and making sure that they wouldn't be able to make it to areas where they would be able to exercise their freedoms. So policing systems were invented on racism. Oh no, where'd I go? Oh, there I am. I love history. I did learn more than most because I'm interested. I will probably read someday. Yes. Please read it. Yes, exactly. Created off of slavery. Correct. So there has never been a morally just policing body. Ever. Learned about it during quarantine. Yeah. There were a lot of things we learned during quarantine. Okay, so that's that. Okay, what else? There's so many things I wanted to talk about. Let me see my notes. Oh, by the way, no single organization influenced the way educators teach about the antebellum South and the Civil War more than the United Daughters of the Confederacy. By World War I, the United Daughters of the Confederacy had more members than any teachers' union, parent-teacher association, or historical society in the entirety of our country. And that power has not dissipated. Just an FYI. Okay. So another thing that I would like to talk to in relation to that is there is... Slavery is still technically legal. Black people were unrightfully convicted for a long time so that they'd be... Yes, it does talk about that as well. It talks about the prison being invented as a means of legal slavery. It talks about different ways in which policies were made as like loopholes to be able to more easily imprison people and therefore turn them into modern day slaves. It talks about all of that. That is not a secret. So thank you for bringing that up. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Okay, part of that actually, I think this is a good segue for that, for what I wanted to talk about, which is the GI Bill. So we do our veterans so dirty, and it's something that really pisses me off. Okay. Like, I am not pro war of any kind. But I can respect that we need to take care of our veterans. And the fact that listen, I'm just going to put aside all the BS that's happening right now as far as like getting rid of the dangerous homeless. Well, if we took care of our veterans, there wouldn't be so many homeless of them. It's also costing us way more money to be able to have these policing bodies moving around the Capitol than it would to actually shelter and feed our veterans and our homeless. But you know what? Whatever, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So the GI Bill was invented so that veterans would be able to get an education. Okay. Now, HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. Just because certain laws were created that prevented the segregation in educational spaces does not mean that everybody adhered to it or was made to adhere to it. And we still see that as a problem today. Actually, student loans were invented as a way of keeping Black communities and brown communities from getting an education. Thanks, what was it, Reagan, Nixon, whatever? Fuck them both. That's neither here nor there. So what was happening was we had a lot of Black soldiers after Vietnam, after plenty of wars, and they would come to they would come back home and they would try to take advantage of this bill that would allow them to get a college education. However, because non-HBCUs, meaning like majoritively white colleges, were intentionally not accepting Black students in mass, it's what ended up happening was the HBCUs were full to capacity. And so there's whole generations of Black veterans who were denied an education by the same government that they defended because there were not enough seats in the universities that would accept them. And that cycles back into a lack of a proper education is a theft of resources that people need, the knowledge that they need in order to lead a more fulfilling life and be a more productive member of society. And that is not their fault. And that it's being framed as them because they're uneducated and because all of these systems are pitted against them, they are now being blamed for all of the things that are causing them to be pushed into these ghettos and labeled as ghetto. I'm very anti-war. That being said, many go into war young and get traumatized. Many also get out of desperation. How expensive education is. Yes, because they have mental health issues and not treatment. Correct. Mental health as a resource, even in colleges and universities, is a relatively new thing as well. And also was not readily available to anyone who was not a white student. So yeah. And it's frustrating seeing the cycle. It's frustrating seeing the cycle just continue and seeing all of the pieces, like every step of the way of someone. And there are many people who are mentioned in this book who risked their lives in order to create opportunities for equality. And every step of the way, seeing some white person go, fine, all right, they can do it this way, but what if we create this loophole? They'll never be able to get food now. Like, what? It's insane. Propaganda was worse back then. The generational problem of people consistently going in is I feel hesitant to say that it was worse because I feel like even now it's so blatant. Like I feel that we are currently in a part of our history where I feel lucky enough to be able to stand on the backs of the people who came before and learn from their experiences through the materials and stories that they left behind to be able to see the propaganda for what it is. But I might argue that because of the fascism that is currently on the rise, that in all honesty, and I think everyone is able to agree, is attempting to start another civil war, which is extremely scary, that it's not worse. It's just taken a different form. Yeah, don't worry, Katie. You know more than most. Yeah, and to me, it's horrifying. It's always been there. It's like the monster. White supremacy is the monster that lives under the bed. Jeez. Okay, I only have a few more minutes, so let me see what else I wanted to talk about here. Okay, let's talk about real quick. Speaking of global issues, there was a chapter devoted to the Haitian Revolution. I remember asking why at least 10 times for every chapter. Why are people so cruel to other people? No, Damien, it's not that you're too autistic. It's that you're a nice person. You're a nice person. In more detail than my teachers at IB because I learned from my brother. Yes, good, huge, right? Okay, so here's what happened, right? And this, it pissed me off, and the fact that I wouldn't even say resolved within the past 10 years. It's just the chapter closed, but the story continues. So the Haitian Revolution was sometime in like, I think it was the early 1800s. It was either the late 1700s or early 1800s. Anyway, a bunch of things happened. I don't have enough time to go into details of all the incredible people who were like double agents between the French military and the Haitian government during these coups. All right. But essentially, it came down to enough people revolted, and their tactic was, if you're white, you're not getting off this island alive, unfortunately. Because there was a very clear divide of either you were a white supremacist, or you're someone who benefited and continued the powers of white supremacy, or you were a slave. And so it was like, everybody pick up whatever you got, white people start running. And so that's essentially what happened. And so they kind of held the island at ransom because there weren't enough guards, French military stationed on the island to be able to handle the revolts. And so they left. But what France ultimately did was they held trade with Haiti at ransom. And they invented reverse reparations, which when I read that word, I was like, wait, what? They did what? Like, how? And it's crazy to me because it's like, it's the same argument that we've been having here in the United States of like people saying, oh, we can't give Black people reparations. Yet in history, not only have Black people had to pay false reparations to the French, okay, but reparations were paid to Japanese who were in internment camps. And there was also reparations paid to like various Native American groups for other reasons that I don't remember off the top of my head right now. But when it comes to giving reparations to Black people, it's like, no, we can't do that. So let's talk about how the Black people of Haiti were forced to give reparations to their slave owners, okay? So let me see if I can find, I had a sticky note on it because I was like, and the crazy part about it is too, that the only way that this was able to succeed was because the United States said, we got you, boo. France, don't worry. We'll make them pay. And pay they did for like 120 years until 2010. Haiti was paying reparations because of inflation and interest. Is crazy. So that tell me about the beauty of Black resistance was about their hair. They had incredibly creative, and the way that they congregated arts at salons was awe-inspiring. That fact made me rage. Oh, there's a lot of things here about ways of communication through art forms that were like forms of resistance, but I don't even think I have time to go into that. It's insane. It's insane. Hold on. I know I highlighted the heck out of this. Hold on. Okay. Yes, France essentially demanded reverse slave reparations. In 1825, France sent warships to Haiti and demanded 150 million francs. Not only did the United States agree with this, but they backed up France's demands for the debt on international stage. Oh, Wall Street. So Wall Street had a hand in this too, because the United States was like, hey, not only will we help you force Haiti to pay reparations for the money that you're going to lose because now you lost your Caribbean plantations, but we're going to make them go through American banks to do it. And in comes a bank that is still very popular today, Citibank. I was like, what? Citibank was founded on the interest of paid reverse reparations, but from Haiti? Blew my mind. Boom. I feel like I need to tell everybody who I know who uses Citibank. I mean, the wrong ways. This has lasted till 2010. Like, why didn't the modern French government do shit? Because they don't want to, because they're racist. It's like, I hate that it all boils down to just that simple sentence is like, because racism, but it is. They wrecked the economy, made it so hard for Haiti to be a success story. It would show Black power. They were just, yes. And on top of that, the book demonstrates many instances in which brave Black slaves or freedmen or just brave Black souls in general tried to start revolutions. There were many instances in which they tried to start revolutions and they just failed. They failed because they were outnumbered by the white man in regards to like resources and lands and the government. The government would come in and silence these coups. And so it's like, it's not that people weren't fighting. People were fighting. But when they lost, the government used their bodies to make a statement. And that honestly, I'm not gonna cry. The horrible things, I gotta say, like, okay, I'm a horror reader, right? I read horror books and I read body horror. But reading a horror book that I know is fiction and reading the history of horrible things that were done to people are two completely separate things. And so when I read what our government and what these plantation owners did to the bodies of the people who attempted to start these revolutions and free slaves was so disgusting, so dehumanizing. I struggled to stomach it. Like, I physically got nauseous. And I don't get nauseous at body horror in horror books. So I say that to say, if you're gonna read it, be conscious. And these are the kinds of things that we need to be aware of. I was born before then. That was right. You are young and you were born before Haiti finished paying off the reverse reparations, which is crazy. Happy to do business with them. Racism is bad. They were even more brave than most. I hate when people say that Black people were here for longer than Asians, so why couldn't they prosper? Literally. Literally. Like, the privileges are different. The segregation, correct. There were attempts to make different marginalized peoples fight amongst each other for scraps of benefit. It was a long game plan to suppress Black people, and it was insane. Yeah. It's no, it's horrible. It's horrible. I'm sorry you saw that. Like, it's just. So yeah, that I'm raging. I'm getting hot. Anyway, so yeah, Citibank was invented for that reason. Oh my god. Contemporary equivalent, the contemporary equivalent of what Haiti owed to France in the year 2020 would have been $21 billion. And my literal note here, because I didn't know what else to say, was shut the fuck up, no way. Just yes, the whole Asian as a model minority is an invention of white supremacy to further suppress other groups, correct? Okay, so I only have like less than 2 minutes left because I have to do sprints pretty soon. But I will say that those are like a lot of, actually, I feel like I got most of the main points I wanted to get to. Like, there's so much more here. I feel like I maybe touched on a quarter of the things that I learned in this book because there's just so much material here. I'm probably going to make like a multi-part TikTok videos, multiple TikTok videos trying to explain the different things that I learned in this book. It's insane. So please read it. If you haven't read it, please read it. I guess this, you know what, I might just solidify it's my favorite book of the year because I need everyone to read this. It's so important. You did not derail me. No, we were very much on topic. Pressure I had as a young Asian woman because of that stupid expectation. I gave it until middle school. Then I was like, yes, F that. I agree. That's okay. Listen, I also had things that I struggled with as a Latina. I get it. You're not alone in how you feel. But yeah, so I think that's where I'm going to leave this for now. And I do want to talk about more things in time, but I think I'll put them up as TikToks and like mini videos. So If you're going to be here for next month, what we're reading next month is A Mind Spread Out on the Ground, which I'm going to be listening to as an audiobook. It's by Alicia Elliott, who's a Native American author. So if you want to check that out, that'd be great. Yes, Katie, fill the chat. It's okay. We're intelligent people having an intelligent conversation. Fill the chat. I love you for it. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and log out. And then once again, if you want to join the book club or support my channel to do this, consider becoming a channel member at any level. I think the lowest level I put is like $1.99 a month to support my channel and support the things that I do to be able to continue this hobby and things. And the money goes towards buying books like this to support authors of color for the book club. So yeah, I was listening. Yay! Giving my AP history classes. Yes, put that history knowledge to use. Okay. So anyway, that's going to be it for today. I'm going to go jump over to sprints and I will see you guys in a little while. Bye, friends.